Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of me ranking every single Pokemon. As you can see, I'm about halfway through the editing, but I remembered halfway through that I needed to record an intro because this is part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, it's probably an iCard on the top right corner. Hopefully I remembered to do that. But yeah, thanks for watching part 2, and let's get on with it. Alright, it is the next day. I've had some time to think about, well, I mean, I haven't thought about any of my next choices at all. But let's move on to Gen 6 here. Gen 6 normal types, we do have a good number of them. So looking at all of the normal types introduced in Gen 6, I think Heliolisk has a pretty good chance of winning this category. What is in Electric though? Okay, Electric isn't that large either. I think I'm gonna put Heliolisk as favorite Electric type, and then normal type slots open for Diggersby. Actually, wait, what's Ground? Okay, this is a pretty small generation that was mostly based on Megas. Zygarde would probably be my favorite ground type to come out of this gen, but for Diggersby, we're gonna put normal type. I think Diggersby is just a neat concept for a bunny Pokemon. Also, the fact that he gets huge power is kind of crazy. Also, Shiny Diggersby is quite nice, and Diggersby for a while in Pokemon Go is actually pretty good. So Diggersby gets the normal type checkmark. Heliolisk is really one of my favorite gimmick Pokemon before they made Bolt Hunt, just because Heliolisk is Electrify, is super fun to mess around with. But Bolt Hunt ended up being a faster Electrify user, so he's kind of replaced Heliolisk. But Heliolisk was he was the OG Electrify user. That would just, nobody would know if you didn't know what the move Electrify does. It makes it so that the Pokemon that you target for a turn, the move that it uses will always be electric typing. So if you use Earthquake, it would end up being electric type Earthquake, which has a lot of interesting competitive play. I think it just hasn't been on super good Pokemon, probably because they get that move. But Heliolisk is a lizard that like absorbs the sun and shoots off the electricity. It's pretty neat. And Zygarde is a ground type. It's just cool. Like, if I could, I would put Zygarde 100% form here. That might be over here. Yeah, just consider this Zygarde 100% form. It's just really neat. I mean, we all know Zygarde 100% form was really supposed to come out in Gen 6. But yeah, he gets that spot over there. Going into fire types, we have a good number of. I think in fire types, I'm going to put Volcanion here. Volcanion is a very powerful mythical Pokemon, and I just like his design. Like, just being fire water is really cool. Just the concept of steam. I've never really had a chance to use one because they're mythicals, and you always basically get them like 3 months before the games end because they're just giving out all the mythicals. But Volcanion is an innate design, also very cool shiny. But I want to take a quick trip over to flying, and I think flying is going to be Talonflame. Because Talonflame is one of my favorite regional birds. It just does its design really nicely, going from Fletchling to Talonflame. Also, the ability is really interesting. I'm kind of glad that they nerfed it because Gale Wings in Gen 6 was just so powerful. Being able to set out Tailwind or Brave Bird at any point with full priority was just really strong. But, you know, just being Firebird, good overall design. Okay, now let's move back to water. It's kind of hard for me to pick between Greninja, Barbicle, and Closetser. But if I had to pick a favorite water from this gen, I think it would be Closetser. I was like, Greninja's cool. He's a water ninja. But Clauncher as a crab that like just shoots off cannons, has a neat ability, really is just its own unique design for a crab. Like, if you were to ask me to design a ninja frog, it would probably look exactly like Greninja, but if you asked me to design a shooting crab Pokemon, I don't think I could come up with Closetser in 100 years. Moving on to grass. Who do I feel most strongly as a grass type? Okay, give me a second for grass, because grass is Chestnut. Chestnut was the Pokemon that I picked originally in Gen 6, and while I have grown to like Greninja over the years as a Pokemon, I think that's more just because Greninja is just a more hype Pokemon in general, so I feel like I've grown a bias towards Greninja for that reason. But Chestnut's neat. Like, it's grass fighting typing kind of brings him down because you're quad weak to flying, but like Spiky Shield is such a neat move. You can definitely tell that they like invented that for Chestnut and then started handing it out for other Pokemon. And while Chestnut doesn't specifically excel at doing very much of anything, I think that there's a lot of opportunity for Chestnut to improve for like in Pokemon Legends Arceus, they gave them different evolutions. I think that there's a lot of potential for a Chespin evolutionary line to end up different than Chestnut. or like a grass steel chestnut, or a grass rock chestnut. So yeah, well, Quilden's a little fugly. I definitely like chestnut here. Okay, and then going it back to grass. I wouldn't even say I like this Pokemon more than Chestnut, but I'm going to put Go-Go here. Go-Go has always felt like a very reliable design Pokemon. I think... this might be my first pre-evolution that I put on the board, but I think I'm going to put Skidoo over Go-Goat. Because Skidoo is freaking adorable, man. Like, look at this guy. He's so cute. And while I don't necessarily dislike what they evolved Skidoo into with Go-Go, he's just so cute. He's just a good little goat Pokemon. He doesn't do anything wrong, he just hops around the mountain. And Go-Goat is like the powerful, fully evolved form of this, but Skidoo, he's a good design. I like him a lot. Moving into Ice, I think Ice is just going to be Avalugg. Avalugg, coffee table, can't really go wrong. Just defense tank, very reliable in most scenarios where special attackers don't exist. But it feels like they have tried to make Avalugg viable again and again, to no avail every generation, but, you know, maybe next year. As for fighting type Pokemon, see, I tried to get into being a Pangoro person multiple times. It's just that if I was to pick a dark and fighting type, I would probably pick Scrafty nearly every time. I think I'm gonna give this spot to Hawlucha. Hawlucha is a cool single evolution Pokemon, very neat ability with that Unburden. Pretty good in a lot of scenarios. You can acrobatics once your Unburden goes off. Just a neat Pokemon. Also really good for speedrunning, actually. Just with that fighting and flying combination. You can hit a lot of Pokemon for super effective damage, or at least neutral damage. Poison, yeah, Poison's just Dragalge. But even if you were to introduce more Poison types into this gen, I feel like Dragalge still holds this spot pretty firmly. Just because he's a Dragon Poison type, which is neat, but adaptability is really strong. I just like the design of it being the kelp Pokemon that kind of hides in the kelp, but then he like shoots out, and I played Pokemon Y, so I saw these guys like all the time. Just a neat concept. Okay, psychic types that came out this gen. This is a hard choice. I really like Malamar because I really like contrary Pokemon in general. We haven't seen Malamar in a hot sec, but I think that's mostly just because Malamar isn't that great. But Hoopa Unbound is quite a strong psychic type. Like the concept of Hoopa in general, where it's just like a small guy that becomes the big guy, where he has this super beast go ham form. I just like him a lot. Like it feels like a very powerful mythical Pokemon. Okay, Bug. Bug is just the Vivillon forms. I mean, I guess I could use this to pick out... Oh wait, isn't there actually a category for favorite Vivillon form? Okay, yeah, there's a category for favorite Vivillon form. I think it's gonna be this pink one here. I don't know what it's called. I think it's the Meadow one. I just like the pink color. I also quite like the Pokeball pattern, so I think I'll put Pokeball pattern in here. Pokeball pattern was available as an event like a while ago, and I've just never really had a reason to use Vivillon, even though it's kind of good. Okay, rocks. Rock is going to be either Diancie or Tyrantrum. Because I like Tyrantrum. I mean, Tyrantrum is just big T-Rex guy. He goes and he mauls over everybody, and he does not apologize. And his shiny's pretty good, and just a good design. But Diancie as like a ruler of the Carbink Kingdom, and these two having kind of the relationship, even having a Mega Evolution, it's just a neat idea for a mythical Pokemon. Like, most of these mythical Pokemon you just see, like, roaming around the region, like Mew, or wherever the heck Jirachi just sleeps. Like, they're just around in the world somewhere. But Diancie actually has a purpose of being the leader of the Carbink Kingdom. But if I had to pick between the two, I think I would pick Tyrantrum. Okay, moving on to Ghost. Ghost types is just Aegislash. Aegislash is just so cool. Maybe I guess I prefer Shield form more than I prefer Blade form. But just Steel Ghost type Pokemon that changes stance, has such a good move in King Shield. You could just Sword Stance and then Shadow Sneak sweep everything. You could either be physical or special, running like Shadow Ball, Flash Cannon. Just an overall really good Pokemon. Okay, moving into Dragons. So I've already picked Dragalge and Tyrantrum. I kind of want to put Goodra in here. I quite like Goodra. Goodra's just simple. I really don't know if I want to put Goodra over Noivern, because I like Noivern's design a lot, but it doesn't really do a lot in terms of moveset other than just be fast, Tailwind, and Hurricane. No, I think I will give this spot to Goodra. Goodra just has, like, it's the first pseudo to not be dual typed, which I think kind of lowers some of its use, because it's a very defensive pseudo. And defensive in mostly just the special way, where if you gave this thing an Assault Vest, it could beat Tapu Fini if it had Thunderbolt on it. That's how powerful its special defense is. But I mean, as we've seen with Hisui and Goodra, like, Goodra is a good base point for getting variant forms, which is pretty neat. So yeah, I'll put Goodra here. Favorite dark type to come out of this gen. I'm gonna skip this for a sec, actually. I'm gonna move over to Steel. Wait. Oh, we haven't Ghost. Okay, I'm actually going to slot Trevenant into Ghost, and then I'm going to slot Aegislash into Steel. So Trevenant takes the Ghost type spot just because Trevenant as a design, just being the Ghost type haunted tree in the forest, it does really well. And I feel like Trevenant has carried me a good number of times whenever I get it in a Pokemon game. Just having that Horn Leech, having Will-O-Wisp, eventually getting access to moves like Shadow Claw and Leech Seed. Trevenant's a very reliable Pokemon. Also, the shiny is dope whenever it gets, like, the red leaves. Very, very cool Pokemon. Okay, what are we looking at in Fairy? I really like AZ's Floette. I don't have much attachment to it, I just like the idea of a Pokemon that's, like, different from the other Floettes. But then we have Slurpuff over here, and we also have Sylveon, and these are both very good Fairy types. Just because with Slurpuff you can Belly Drum and then get your Citrus Berry off and then Unburden, and then you can Play Rough and Drain Punch everything on the field. You also set up Sticky Web with it. It's got a few things in its kit that makes it a really nice Pokemon. But Sylveon is a bit more reliable than Slurpuff. And I feel like whenever I'm creating Pokemon for a Pokemon team, I'm more likely to grab Sylveon than Slurpuff. Just because Pixelate Hyper Voice is kind of crazy, as well as other Pixelate abilities. So if I had to pick between Slurpuff and Sylveon, I think I'd pick Sylveon here. Okay, Gimmick Form is literally every Gimmick Form, but I'm only going to pick the Gen 6 one, which is Mega Diancie. Mega Diancie, I think it's just neat. That's it. Okay, best Legendary to come out of this gen, not including Primals and Megas. So Xerneas is a cool Pokemon, but its signature move is a bit too much. Like, I think we can all admit that. And while Xerneas is a neat idea for, like, the first Fairy type Legendary who represents life, and it turns into the tree and stuff, I don't have much attachment to Xerneas. And that is because I played Pokemon Y, and Pokemon Y had the cool Bird of Destruction. Good old dark flying Yveltal that just Oblivion Wings everything. And at the time I didn't know what a physical special split was, or what the difference between them was, and I was it was weird to find out that Yveltal's a physical attacker whenever its signature move is a special attack. But that also kind of gives Yveltal, like, its own sort of niche, where it can run both physical or special. And more often than not, you see them being physical. But, like, during the Gen 8 meta, Yveltal was getting used, like, more than Xerneas, which is pretty astonishing to see. Just because Dynamax was such an important, powerful part of the Gen 8 meta. And Yveltal was more consistently tanky, could go for max Airstream, could get his health back with Oblivion Wing, could use max Darkness in order to lower the SPDF of its opponents. So I think Yveltal pretty safely takes this spot, since I think every other spot has been taken by another mythical Pokemon that came out this gen. Then going back over to Dark type, it's really a hard one between Greninja and Malamar, but I think I am going to give Dark type to Greninja, because Greninja more closely embodies the Dark type in my opinion than Malamar does, and while Contrary is neat, Greninja's just had more based around it in terms of marketing and stuff, where it gets Ash Greninja, gets Protean, which isn't as good of an ability anymore, but it's still pretty neat. And I can see myself slotting a Greninja onto a lot more teams than I could see myself slotting a Malamar onto. Okay, and last but not least, favorite Gen 6 Pokemon. I'd say the Pokemon that I gravitate the most towards when thinking about Gen 6 is probably Talonflame. But let me think about that for a sec. I mean, it's really between Talonflame and Aegislash. in my opinion. Aegislash, it's just such a unique design where it's just the sword and the shield and he switches between it, and the ability is so good. But Talonflame as an overall Pokemon that you can use for either Flame Body or Gale Wings is pretty good either way, and a very reliable bird. So I think I am going to give the spot to Talonflame. Alright, moving into Gen 7 normal types. Who do we have here? Oh, is Silvally gonna have each of its fire Silvally? Okay, no. This is a hard one because I like Toucannon, but I haven't gotten to use Toucannon in a while just because it hasn't been in Gen 8 or Gen 9 yet. And Beak Blast is a very cool signature move where at the start of the turn, it burns anything that has physical contact with it and then it attacks. But Beware is cute. I like Beware a lot. He's a fluffy guy. He can tank a hit and then punch back with Drain Punch. But Silvally as an overall concept where from type Null it breaks the mask and becomes Silvally, and then it's kind of like this artificial Arceus kind of Pokemon is very neat. So for normal, I think I am going to give it to Silvally. Just a good design Pokemon. Also, it's an amalgamation of like a bunch of other Pokemon, but I feel like Silvally is like a sleeper in Pokemon lore, where there's so much that could be further explained about Silvally in the future and its impact on stories. Alright, moving into fire types. This is a bit of a difficult one. Actually, I should do this every time, but let's just go over to starters and let's put Incineroar there. Incineroar is my favorite starter. I don't like what he does to the competitive meta at all. I think he's inflated as crap, and his roll compression in the competitive meta is just a little bit too good. Because you Intimidate Cycle, you Parting Shot, you Fake Out, and we've got a lot of tools in Gen 9 to deal with the roles that Incineroar has. But Incineroar, he just goes crazy. Like, you pretty much have to put him on a doubles team just because of how strong it is, and they only keep making it stronger. But like in terms of starter design, Incineroar is probably my favorite, even though Decidueye is a very close second to Incineroar, in my opinion. And while I don't dislike Primarina's design, it's just not for me. Going back over to fire types, this is really between Bucephalon and Alola and Marowak. I think Alola and Marowak might be one of my favorite regionals, definitely top 5 in the regionals, if not top 3. But just such a neat idea where it builds on the lore of Cubone, and it like has mended with its departed soul and whenever it becomes Marowak. But Bucephalon as a Fireworks Ultra Beast is very unique too. Bucephalon, whenever you get it going, can just sweep entire teams, as opposed to Marowak, who's kind of needs Trick Room in order to function, but when you give it a thick club, it just goes crazy. I think I'm gonna give the spot to Bucephalon. Actually, what are you looking at in terms of Ghost this generation again? Ooh, Ghost is a very strong showing this generation. Yeah, I think I just have to rip off a banner here, and I'm gonna make it Bucephalon. Or water type Pokemon. Oh, Toxapex. Toxapex is such a pest, but I love Toxapex so much for being that really tanky Pokemon. Also, Baneful Bunker is such a neat move. And like, most people run Regenerator Toxapex, but I like running my Toxapex as Merciless, so that way I can just Finish Shot, crit, kill everything. And I think Toxapex brings a lot to the table for just having poison type teams that you really just can't get anywhere else, except for maybe Glimmora, now that Glimmora is out in Gen 9. While I would like to put Wishy-Washy in this form, whenever I use Wishy-Washy, I feel more let down by Wishy-Washy's potential rather than anything else, because while I think the school form is a very neat idea, it doesn't end up having a lot of uses outside of the school form, because like you get that initial turn and then it turns into the baby Pokemon, and then you're just kind of stuck for the rest of the game. Araquanid is also cool. Water Bubble as an ability is very neat, and Water Spider, I mean, I guess I just have an affinity for spiders, but Water Spider is a neat idea. What does Poison look like? Oh, Poison has Naganadel. Gosh, you know, I'm kind of realizing how much I like Gen 7 Pokemon now. Naganadel and Nihilego. Okay, I think I am going to give the water type spot to Toxapex. If we go back over to Poison, I would be going to give Poison to Naganadel or Nihilego, but what are we looking at in terms of... Oh, Rock is Lycanroc. Yeah, I think Rock goes to Lycanroc pretty easily over Nihilego. Lycanroc, midday specifically, it's just always been a fun Pokemon for me to use. It's just Rock Doggo, and he's a good boy, and I like him a lot for that. Okay, going back to Poison. Sorry to do this to Nihilego, because I really like Nihilego as a Pokemon, but before Meteor Beam being a thing, I think I prefer Naganadel like 10 out of 10 times. Naganadel as just that poison type Ultra Beast that gets like Sludge Wave, Draco Meteor, Flamethrower, Nasty Plot. It's just such an offensive Pokemon that I love to bits. And while it doesn't necessarily synergize with other Pokemon very well, I think it just does a really good job at standing out by itself and being a really good threat. Okay, let's go back to grass for a second. I think I am going to give grass to... This is hard. Because Lurantis is here, and Lurantis is contrary. But Serena is here, and Serena's Queenly Majesty is also really good. It's kind of it's good design, I think. Delmise has a neat ability as well. I would like to see it get an evolution at some point, but Delmise for now is okay. Tapu Bulu is such a neat Tapu where it sits grassy terrain, and I used it competitively for a good amount of time in Gen 7. And you've also got Kartana, and Kartana is one of my favorite Ultra Beasts just as he's a little paper guy that cuts through everything, which is incredibly high attack stat that just gets higher every turn. But Alolan Exeggutor is an awesome variant of Exeggutor that becomes Grass Dragon, and he's just a tall palm tree guy. Man, this is a hard category to pick. If I was to randomly draft a grass type from this pool, though, I think the one that I would want the most is Decidueye. Just a strong starter, strong ghost type Pokemon. Can't really complain with the quality that Decidueye puts out. Good starter this gen. For electric type, electric's a little difficult, but I think I will give this one to Vikavolt, though. I think I will give this one to Zeraora. Just as an electric type mythical Pokemon, I think Zeraora does a lot. Also, Plasma Fist is pretty funny. And like, Zeraora's fast, but it's frail and can hit like pretty hard. But I think Zeraora as an electric type is just a really compelling one to see. Like, I'm always a sucker for fast electric type Pokemon. Ice? Ice is... See, I like Crabominable, and I used Crabominable in one of my playthroughs. I can't remember which one. I think it might have been this when I did Ultra Moon. I need to open my 3DS and check on my Pokemon from Sun and Ultra Moon, see how they're doing. But if I was to pick an ice type, I think it would be Alolan Ninetales. Alolan Ninetales is just so majestic, such a good regional variant of Ninetales. And its ability to like set Snow Warning and Aurora Veil is really just unparalleled, except for every Pokemon that they've given Aurora Veil to since then. But like, with defense and snow now being a thing, I think Ninetales' viability has shot up a good bit. Because Ninetales was even viable before the snow changes, back in Gen 7. It was like the top snow, I mean, I guess it's not a hard position to fight for, but it was like the top snow setter, and really made snow viable. I think fighting type is going to go... I haven't ranked Ghost yet, but I think fighting type, both the bug fighting Ultra Beasts that came out this gen were pretty good. Like, the way that they contrast each other, with this guy being a big buff bug mosquito, and this one being, you know, this bug type. Like, as Ultra Beast, I think they do very good jobs at being Ultra Beast, but as a mythical Pokemon, Marshadow, the little thing that comes out of the shadow and then steals all of your stats with its Super Busted signature move, is also very compelling. I think I'm gonna give fighting to Buzzwole, just because Buzzwole being big muscly bug that punches through everything, and then continues to punch through everything. Just good design. I like him a lot. Okay, moving into ground. Ground is hard to pick between Mudsdale and Palisand, because they both do their roles like pretty moderately well, but Palisand's water compaction ends up making it more viable than Mudsdale's stamina. In fact, both of these Pokemon are pretty comparable. They both fill very similar roles. It's just that this one is a ghost type and can proc its weakness policy whenever it activates its ability, versus Mudsdale, who just kind of sits there and being defense techy. But Mudsdale can body press, which is, I guess, is the main difference. And I think I like Mudsdale as a horse more than I like Palisand as a sandcastle. So I'm gonna put Mudsdale in the ground type slot. Flying type. So I already did I give Toucan? No, I didn't give Toucan in the flying type spot. Let's do that. Let's just give Toucan. I like Celesteela as an Ultra Beast Pokemon. I think I like Toucanon as a regional bird more than I like Celesteela as an Ultra Beast. Even though I have used Celesteela a good number of times, it's always just felt like a Pokemon that I've never really used correctly and doesn't fit my style very much. Whereas Toucannon is just gimmicky as crap, and I love that. Oh, Psychic types. Let's skip Psychic types for a second, because that has a lot of legendaries in it. Let's move over to Bug. I think since Buzzwole was picked already, between having Araquanid and Vikavolt for favorite bug type spot, I think I'm gonna pick Vikavolt, because Vikavolt, while being very slow, being an electric bug, kind of like Galvantula, gives me a soft spot for Vikavolt in the sense that I always want to use it for its type combination. I think with Terastallization and it having Levitate, it could see a lot more play whenever it comes back around. But Vikavolt, I think, is a neat singles Pokemon, as opposed to Araquanid, who's just kind of overwhelming with its water type presence. I think you could just pick better water types than Araquanid in general, especially since you're neutral to fire. But with Vikavolt, I feel like it has a lot of bug and electric offense as long as you're taking hits correctly. Okay, moving into Ghost, I feel like a good number of things. Actually, what's in Fairy right now? Okay, I would put a Tapu in Fairy. However, I'm going to put Mimikyu in Fairy. Mimikyu, as a little fairy guy who is Pikachu, it's just a good design. Also, I see myself drafting Mimikyu a lot whenever I'm making teams, even though Disguise has felt less impressive every generation. Mimikyu, I think, is just a solid Pokemon. It doesn't need to change at all. It's just a simple idea. It does it very well. Good, he gets the check mark. Okay, so moving back into Ghost, I think I'm going to give Ghost to Palisand, because Palisand is just a neat ghost type. He's got the ground typing, it can Iron Defense, Giga Drain, Shadow Ball, Earth Power, and as a sandcastle that comes to life on the beach, and also has a very neat, cool, shiny form. I just like Palisand as a concept a lot. Dragon Ball Z. I think Ultra Necrozma goes very hard. And Ultra Necrozma is kind of weighed down by the fact that you have to use a Z move in order to activate it. But, like, that's kind of necessary because its ability is crazy. Like, this thing is just so strong. And as, like, an ultimate light Pokemon, I think it does that job very well. Like, it's just it's powerful. Like, Pokemon that can rival Arceus, whenever Arceus is in, like, its omnipotent god place, wherever it is in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Pokemon that could, like, rival gods, Ultra Necrozma is one of them, and I think its design reflects that very well. Okay, is Dark... it's kind of difficult. I mean, I like Alolan Muck and Alolan Raticate and Alolan Persian, don't get me wrong, but I think I'm going to fill this slot with Guzzlord, just because Guzzlord as an Ultra Beast kind of gets weighed down by the fact that it's quad weak to Fairy, but other than that, it's a very solid concept. Like, it's a very scary Pokemon. Like what they did for it in Ultra Sun and Moon, wherever you go to the world where Guzzlord is just devouring buildings, is freaking terrifying. Like, he's just a very silly guy in that sense, that he could destroy your entire world, so he gets the dark typing spot. Steel? So I feel like Solgaleo has a good chance of winning legendary spot, so it's a close race between Celesteela, Kartana, and Melmetal, but I think I'm gonna give it to Melmetal, just because Pokemon Go, having a mythical Pokemon is such a neat idea, and I wish that they would give Meltan like another split evolution where it doesn't have to become Melmetal just to keep Pokemon Go a little bit more relevant. But Melmetal has a tanky steel type Pokemon that double Iron Bashes freaking everything and has elemental punches. He does a very good job at being a Pokemon. Like, Melmetal is like the opposite of Fluttermane in a sense, where Fluttermane is like specially bulky and has a lot of speed and special attack. Melmetal has a lot of physical attack and physical bulk and is just very slow. Let's go back to Psychic now. Actually, no, let's do Legendary. So if I have to pick a Legendary out of the ones presented in front of me here, I do think it's going to be Solgaleo. Solgaleo, it's just a cool box Pokemon. He's the Sun Lion. He's like just a very powerful looking Pokemon. I think a very well designed one too at that. Like, he just looks very legendary. Like, if you look, maybe Lunala too. Lunala and Solgaleo kind of go hand in hand in looking like a legendary Pokemon, but they kind of started the trend of the legendary Pokemon is a Pokemon that appears many times. It's just very strong Pokemon, like, in general. I like that trend a little bit more than the God of Time or the God of Earth. And while I think that those concepts have had their time, I think Solgaleo and Lunala have done the legendary Pokemon that are many of them just very rare concept, probably the best so far. Okay, gimmick forms includes regional variants here. I mean, I never used Gigantamax Melmetal, but if I had to give this to one of the regional forms, I'd probably say Alolan Raichu. I think Alolan Raichu is a very good regional variant of Raichu, and when compared to the other ones that I haven't already picked for something else that are here, Alolan Raichu really does do its own thing and make Raichu viable again in its own way. Also, Alolan Raichu is still the only electric and psychic type, which is kind of neat. Okay, favorite Gen 6 Pokemon. So if I had to grab any one of these Pokemon to slot onto a team, the one that I would probably want to grab the most is midday form Lycanroc, just because Rock Doggo was neat. And I think I'm going to confidently pick Lycanroc midday form here. I think the gimmick of Lycanroc having the 3 forms based on the stages of the day, it's just a cool idea. I think it would be cool even if they were like different split evolutions, like if Lycanroc midnight form is called like Dark and Rocket or something dumb like that. But going from Rockruff to Lycanroc midday form, it's just a very clear evolution, and just an overall good design for a rock dog Pokemon. Oh, I never picked Psychic type. Psychic type, I guess since I picked Solgaleo, can go to Lunala. Lunala and Solgaleo are just good. I may have already said my piece on that, but they're good legendary Pokemon. Also, Lunala is tanky as crap with Shadow Shield and lets you survive hits that you definitely shouldn't. And like when you put Choice Specs on Lunala, it just goes crazy. So what's not to love about that? Alright, moving on to Generation 8, normal type Pokemon. So, do I include Hisuian Pokemon as being part of Generation 8? Yeah, do I kind of wish that they had their own category to rank them? Yeah, but also it would be such a small category that it probably wouldn't even be worth it. So I'm gonna include them in the Generation 8 discussion. But that makes it hard, because then I have to pick between Obstagoon and Ursaluna and Hisuian Zoroark. And I really like what Obstagoon did for the Zigzagoon line, wherever it's like the black and the white, and Lanoon gets an evolution that is Obstagoon that fits specifically the regional form really well. I equally like what Ursaluna did for the Teddy Ursa line, that being Ursaring evolving into Ursaluna. Just whenever you get all those conditions met, where it's like a full moon in the Crimson Mirelands, and you're giving it that rock. Now, Ursaluna is more competitively viable than Obstagoon, like nearly every time, just because of how sick. Well, actually, I guess they both have guts. One of them has a quad weakness and makes more use of its normal typing than the other one does. But then you have Hisuian Zoroark, which, depending on Ghost type, it might win Ghost type. I think I'm going to put Ursaluna in this slot. For now, at least, I'm going to put Ursaluna in this slot. We might come back to it and give it Ground, depending on what else is in Ground. But I think Ursaluna is just a really neat Pokemon. They did a good job upgrading Ursaring. What are we looking at in Fire? Fire has Cinderace, Colossal, Sizzlipede, and Hisuian Arcanine, and Hisuian Typhlosion, and also the Snowman. So I think Cinderace and Colossal are good. They both could be slotted onto any team, kind of funnily. They're not Pokemon that I would necessarily gravitate towards using, but they are good Pokemon. Whatever, you're not Sizzlipede, but your Sizzlipede's evolved form. Centiskorch is your name. Centiskorch, he's alright. I like the Gigantamax form, but I've never really had a reason to use Centiskorch, nor have I gravitated towards using Centiskorch, which is weird, because I like fire types and I like bug types, but I don't necessarily like Centiskorch that much. I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm trying to get this thing to live up to the standard that Volcarona has set, and it just doesn't. I think for fire types, I'm going to go with Hisuian Typhlosion, just because it does a really good job at being a regional variant of Typhlosion. I like the Ghost Flames a lot. He used to look sick, but now he just looks sick if you're picking up what I'm putting down. Water type. We have a good number of water types this gen. Cramorant is a funny guy, but he doesn't really do much outside of just being gimmicky. Dracovish is insane, but so is Barraskewda, kind of on that same level. But if you want to talk about Pokemon that are even more insane than these two, you've got Urshifu Water Form and Basculegion that are both right here. Basculegion is going to get, like, adaptability last respects at some point whenever it gets introduced into Gen 9, and then it's going to go crazy. See, I really like Basculegion because it's an evolution of a Gen 5 Pokemon that previously didn't do very much. And now it's a Water Ghost type that is going to rain havoc on everybody. But Urshifu Water Form, I feel like is a little bit more reliable. Like, it's a little bit more respectable, because it just changes the way that you play so much with the ability to hit through protects, but also having a move that critical hits every time. It's just such an... like, it's a defense... it can be used defensively, because that's where a good number of its stats lie. But also, like, you could just slap a Choice Scarf on this thing and then have it go ham with Surging Strikes. So if I had to grab either Basculegion or Urshifu, I think I would grab Urshifu more times than not. And specifically the water one, because I like the water one more. So we have Rillaboom here. And actually I'm just going to go over here and we're going to give Rillaboom Grass type. So Rillaboom goes nutty. Rillaboom is just so strong with Grassy Surge. Even though they took away Grassy Glide from it, you still have Wood Hammer, which is going to go crazy. It's just a very probably the best, I mean, Tapu Bulu is the only other one. And Arboliva technically, but just such a really good Grassy setter. Just very tanky, very reliable Pokemon. I think they might have nerfed it a little bit too much. Like, I think all you really had to do before was just take away one or two of its type moves and then decrease the power of Grassy Glide. But I don't know. So going back over to Grass, I would either give this to Flapple or Hisuian Electrode. Just because I think Flapple's funny, where it goes from apple to flapping as an apple. I've always wanted to use Flapple, but he's never felt that good competitively, even though Grav Apple and I guess whatever dragon type moves it's run are like basically the only things it has. But Hisuian Electrode is a little bit more interesting because it kind of fills in the gaps that Electrode had previously, where Electrode could really only use offensive electric type moves or go boom, where this thing can use offensive electric type moves, it can use offensive grass type moves and go boom all at the same time. So yeah, I think I'll give this spot to Hisuian Electrode. Electric types is Boltund. I like Boltund a lot. Regieleki is obviously very good competitively, but what Boltund does on a design and a gimmick level, having that being that other Electrify user, I like so much more than Regieleki, who just goes fast and has speed control with Electro Web. Like, I could see myself slotting Regieleki onto more teams than Boltund, but I mean, like, ideally I'd like to run Boltund just because I like Boltund more. Alright, what are we looking at for Ice? I don't super like any of the Ice types that are here, or any of the variants of the Ice types that are here. I guess if I had to pick one, though, I would pick Galarian Darmanitan, just because Guerrilla Tactics is probably a little bit too much. Like, I think it's just that you get a choice band, but I think that they should, like, it's not that good in doubles, but it's, like, mondo good in singles because of how powerful it is. But I wish it just had more viability in the Zen mode option. Again, it's kind of like one of those wishy-washy situations where, like, I wanted to have it specifically doing this one thing, but it's very hard to keep it doing that one thing once you get there. But Ice Monkey is funny, so he gets the Ice type spot. I would say SQ is an honorable mention in that spot, though. It's just that, like, while SQ's gimmick is funny, I've never really used it, so I don't have much attraction to it. Fighting types. We had a good number of fighting types this gen, huh? See, I would say this is where I would put Urshifu Water if Galarian Zapdos didn't exist. I think Galarian Zapdos is such a good fighting type, just because as a variant of I mean, like, if you asked me to redesign Zapdos into a fighting type, I don't think I would come up with this, and I don't think I would come up with anything that looks like this in 100 years, and Galarian Zapdos, it's just a very well thought out regional variant that has, like, a considerably good amount of play, even when Regieleki was running around. Also, its Defiant ability just allows it to get boosted off of Intimidate and kind of mess with Incineroar, which I like a lot. Alright, moving on to Poison. I think I'm going to give Poison type to Galarian Slowbro. Just because I like Slowbro a lot, and I think the Poison typing, where he gets the quick draw ability makes him a really good regional variant, and it was also fun to get one on the Isle of Armor and just run around with him for a bit. So cool Pokemon. He gets the poison typing. Ground type? Ooh, okay. So I think Sandaconda and Runerigus do kind of stand out at a level above, or I mean, we've already picked Ursaluna, and I really don't want to move Ursaluna into the ground type slot just so I can move something else into the normal type slot. Because I think Sandaconda and Runerigus are both very good ground type Pokemon. Sandaconda was a Pokemon that I used through my main Sword playthrough, and I quite like it a lot, and the Gigantamax form is also pretty neat. And while Runerigus is an regional evolution of a Gen 5 Pokemon that I think design-wise works really well, I think I'm going to put Sandaconda in the spot just because I have so much attraction to using Sandaconda in my normal playthrough. Okay, flying types. Flying types is Corviknight. I like Corviknight a lot. It's a good regional bird, good steel type bird, very bulky. Mirror Armor is a neat ability. I think Corviknight does its job as being a bird very well. Psychic types? I think I'm going to put... What are we having? Fairy. Okay, I think I'm going to put Hatterene and Fairy. Hatterene is just a slow Trick Room Pokemon that pairs pretty well with Indeedee. Oh, I guess Indeedee should be here. Yeah, I quite like Indeedee too. And while Indeedee is annoying for Psy Spam, you can't deny that the fact that it sets up Psychic Terrain, it's just a very good Psychic Terrain setter. It's good redirection, it's just a very reliable Pokemon. It does get on my nerves sometimes whenever it's paired with Armorage and then Psy Spam, but Psy Spam hasn't been that popular ever since Reg C started. So I'm glad that's seen a downtick of uses, but I like using the Indeedee Hatterene pair. I think it works out pretty well, as compared to all the other Pokemon, I guess, that you could put in that slot. Bugs introduced this generation. I think goes to Cleaver. Cleaver's just a cool Scyther evolution. He's got Axe for hands. His signature move whenever it comes out in Gen 9, the ability to set up Stealth Rocks while also doing damage, is gonna be pretty good. So yeah, Cleaver gets the bug type spot. For rocks, we're kind of coming back around on a bunch of rock types. I think I'd be down to give rock to Hisuian Arcanine. Hisuian Arcanine is just a cool regional variant of Arcanine. And if this thing has Rock Head in Gen 9, and it gets like Head Smash and Flare Blitz, it's gonna be pretty good. So, you know, fingers crossed for that. Then again, Palafin is a thing, and Palafin is definitely gonna make Hisuian Arcanine's life miserable. Ghost type? Ghost type, I'll give to Hisuian Zoroark. Okay, wait, actually, I'm gonna do some shuffling. I'm going to give ground to Ursaluna, and I'm going to give normal to Hisuian Zoroark, because I think I want to put Basculegion in Ghost. Because Hisuian Zoroark and Basculegion, they're just cool regional variants, slash evolutions. They just did good jobs with their designs overall. I think that's all I really have to say about that. Dragons! I'd be down to put... Hisui Gooey is in here, though. Are we looking at in steel types? Okay, yeah, I would love to put Copper Raja in steel types, because I really like Copper Raja's design and concept a lot, and also it's another Sheer Force user. It just doesn't have that good of a moveset to do anything with. Because, like, you run Iron Head, Zen Headbutt, and Play Rough, and that's, like, it. I mean, you can also put Power Whip on this thing, or, like, Iron Defense Body Press, but Copper Raja doesn't really have a lot to help it stand out, which is really too bad, because I quite like its design. But Hisui Gooey, as a regional variant of an existing Pokemon, really does improve upon Goodra, and I'm quite excited to have one in Gen 9 eventually. Because the Steel and Dragon typing is so much better than just the Dragon typing whenever it comes to weaknesses. I mean, I guess you're trading 3 weaknesses for 2 weaknesses that are just different, but, like, Hisui Gooey just seems fun. Dark types? What do I want to put in dark type? I like Grimmsnarl, but I feel like it's out of a need to have priority screens and parting shot like all times. But as a dark type design, I feel like this is either between Galarian Moltres or Obstagoon. I don't know who I like more. Or Hisuian Samurot's also here. I kind of shafted Hisuian Samurott for the water typing, but I think Urshifu fits it a little bit better. I think I feel myself using Galarian Moltres more than I use Obstagoon. And I like Galarian Moltres as a dark type design of Moltres more than I like Obstagoon being an evolution of Lanoon. So we're going to put Galarian Moltres here. And then now, going back to dragon types, it's either Dracovish or Dragapult, really. I think, as much as I hate to put another pseudo in favorite dragon types, I'm gonna put another pseudo in favorite dragon types. I mean, come on, he's Dragapult, he's Dragon Ghost, he's got Dragon Darts, he Dragon Dances, he can be run special, a Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, he does so many things. He's clear body, so he doesn't get intimidated, and he's a ghost of a dragon, and he shoots little dreepies out of his head, and he's just a cool design. Like him a lot. He gets the check mark for the dragon type spot. Okay, wow, we have a lot. I mean, I guess this is the Gigantamaxes and the regional forms and the other regional forms of this Gen 8. Favorite one, let's just make this favorite Gigantamax form. My favorite Gigantamax form out of all the ones that are here, my favorite G-Max form out of the ones that are here is probably Colossal, because I've never really been that partial to Colossal as a design, mostly just because he's Rock Fire, which makes him quite weak to 2 typings, which makes him not great. But you cannot deny how powerful Gigantamax Colossal is whenever you get like a fast surf Pokemon next to it. This thing goes ham, and its G-Max move that does residual damage over time is just so effective at dealing damage. Like, the best Gigantamax form competitively here, you could argue, is either G-Max Charizard or G-Max Colossal. No, I guess this is just the Gen 8 ones, now that I think about it, not all the Gigantamax forms. But I think Gigantamax Colossal is my favorite Gigantamax, even when you consider the other gens. Favorite legendary to come out of this generation? It might be, what is this? Why does Sword Doggo look so different here? Oh, is this like the form that it takes whenever it's using its move? Because I've never really noticed that it does that before. Whenever it makes the big sword. I just always thought this big sword just got bigger. I mean, I knew like Zacian's like side plates interlocked into its front to make the full shield, but I never really thought about how Zacian's little things come off its back to make the sword. But if I had to pick a favorite legendary come out of this gen, even though Zacian is so powerful, Sword Doggo's just cool. Like, Doggo with Sword, Steel Fairy typing, gets an attack boost whenever it's sent out onto the field. I understand it is a very, very strong Pokemon, but it's just cool. Doggo with Sword is just cool, and it has all this history about how like it stopped the Darkest Day and destroyed Eternatus, and the way its signature move specifically interacts with Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon is also kind of neat. I think that's a cool part of its lore and how it plays competitively, even though this thing is so insane. It's so powerful. From a design standpoint, I think it's great. Favorite Generation 8 Pokemon? Oh boy. I'd say my favorite Gen 8 Pokemon is probably Urshifu Water or Rillaboom. And since Rillaboom's kind of been nerfed a little bit, maybe that favoritism is going to go away, but Water Urshifu has only gotten better. And I feel like what it does for the competitive format is a lot healthier than what Zacian does. Because you can play around Urshifu, but it's very, meta-defining to play around as Zacian. Whereas Urshifu, I feel like it's just a very interesting piece, and it's very reliable too as well. For just breaking through tanks and fitting my playstyle, where I don't necessarily need something to go fast and kill everything, but I need something that's like moderately fast and could kill things whenever I need it to, or be tanky whenever I need it to. I'd also be more hyped to see more Urshifu forms in the future. I think that's definitely a possibility. And Urshifu just evolving from Kubfu and you training it up and going through the tower and everything that revolves around that, I think it's just neat. Okay, last generation, Gen 9, the gen that I've had the least amount of time with, and might still have more Pokemon added onto it whenever we get the DLCs in like 3 months or so, maybe 4. But if I had to pick a favorite normal type coming out of this generation, I think it's gonna be the Arboliva line, because the Arboliva line and its evolution from Smoliv is just a really well thought out concept and design evolutionary line. Its ability is quite good, and I used it during Season 1, but it's kind of fallen off since Season 2 and 3, or Reg C, as we call it. But I think Arboliva is just a good Pokemon. who will pop up again and again over time. Fire types? Fire types is hard. Fire types is hard, so we're skipping it for now. Water type Pokemon. Okay, this is slightly difficult because we have both Palafin hero form here and Tauros water form, and I feel like the main reason I like Palafin is because of how good it is with Jet Punch whenever you get into hero form. And Tauros water is cool, but I like Tauros fire more than I like Tauros water. Even though Tauros water might be a little bit more viable. Hard to say. I think I'm going to give this spot to Palafin, and that reminds me that I should go over to starters, and I should make Quaquaval the favorite starter, because Quaquaval is favorite starter. Quaquaval, he's just a funny guy, you know, he's a dancing duck. He's got that Moxie boost, so once you Aqua Step and you get Moxie going, this thing is next to unstoppable. And nothing wrong with Meowscarada and Skeledirge. I think this is, again, a really good starter trio, and maybe my third or fourth favorite starter trio, depending on wherever I shuffle around the other ones. These guys are all really good, but Quaquaval, whenever I picked Quaxley as my starter Pokemon, I don't regret it at all. I think Quaquaval is a great design. Generation 9 have gimmick? I guess this is just the regional variants. Regional variants this gen, Tauros Fire. Tauros Fires. I've always wanted a Fire type Tauros. That was like my #1 regional variant Pokemon, where you just have a Tauros that flare blitzes the crap out of everything, and the fact that he looks like this is a great design for it, and I'm so happy that we have a regional variant of Tauros that looks like this. It's just so cool. I wish that there was more, because I thought that this was the only Tauros form originally. I didn't know that these two existed, because I never encountered them in-game, except whenever I did the school tournament at like the end of the game. There was the fighting type teacher who had both of these forms of Tauros, and that's how I found out like 2 weeks after I started playing the game that they existed. I wish I got Fire Tauros for my team in-game, but if I ever play through the game again, I probably pick Fire Tauros as one of my mons. Let's move over to Grass. Grass, I feel like, is definitely deserved for Scovillain. I think Scovillain, as a Fire and Grass type, does feel like a middle evolution Pokemon, but does the Red Hot Chili Pepper kind of design really well. Like a Fire and Grass, like if we were to have a Fire and Grass type, I would want it to be a Chili Pepper Pokemon. I think Scoville does a great job at being that Pokemon. It also gets Chlorophyll, and its signature move, Spicy Extract, is pretty funny. You saw me use it on my Paldea Prologue team. I just think it's a cool Pokemon. Electric types this gen. I haven't gotten to use Miraidon a lot, but I quite like Miraidon. Just because I haven't played Violet. I think it's a hard fight between Miraidon and Pawmot, because Pawmot's signature move is really... Actually, no. I just give it to Miraidon. Miraidon's just such a cool electric type. Sets up electric terrain, gets the boost off of electric terrain, gets to parabolic charge everything on the field. Just such a strong Pokemon, and such a neat, futuristic, legendary-looking Pokemon. Like, very, very cool. Very cool Miraidon. This might feel a bit out of order, but let's go over to Ghost for a sec, and let me look at... Oh, Ghost has a lot of things that I like. Okay, I'm gonna go back over to Fire, actually. Fire I'm giving to Ceruledge, just to take it out of Ghost. Ceruledge, very cool design. Again, one of those Pokemon that I would definitely use on the second playthrough, since I had Scoville. Just good Fire types all around this gen. Especially Skeledirge and Crocolore and Iron Moth and Chiyu. Like, they're all Fire types that I really cannot complain about. Like, I like their designs all a lot. And Armourouge. Can't forget about Armourouge. Armourouge is also very neat. But Ceruledge, just Sword Flame Pokemon, stands above the rest just a little bit more than the rest of them whenever Scoville gets added to Grass. So, yeah, we'll get Ceruledge that spot. Let's move into Ice. I think I'm gonna give Ice to... Shenpao. Shenpao is just cool legendary Pokemon. It's just better Weavile, but like it just fits my playstyle so well because I want it to be fast and I want it to KO things, but it isn't necessarily super frail. I mean, I'm kind of coping there, but like you get what I mean. Like it's not like it can take a hit from a couple of things, but the way that it changes how the play on the field works a little bit, where everything just takes more physical damage, I like a lot. I think it's very cool. Moving into fighting types, I already get Tauros the spot. I don't know if I want to give... I don't know who I want to give the fighting type spot. I quite like Great Tusk, And I like Iron Hands, I like Koraidon, and I like Annihilape. Like, all these guys, I can see getting the fighting type spot. But if I take out who I like more as, like, a concept, I feel like that really only eliminates Iron Hands, because I like Great Tusk as a form of Donphan that is just ancient form. Like, I think it's so good at being Donphan's, like, kind of ancient past form that was more tough and rugged and doesn't give a crap about anything. Like, Great Tusk does a great job doing that. Koraidon, though, as a legendary, I was surprised to see myself getting Scarlet, because, like, Koraidon is such a cool design. Like, Koraidon and Miraidon are both good designed legendaries. Like, I don't think anybody's arguing about that. But, like, running Koraidon around in game, it's just so fun. Like, he's got so many emotions, and also he plays competitively so well. Like, him and Groudon, whenever you pair them up eventually for Gen 9, are going to be such a strong combination. But where Annihilape currently stands in the meta is also very neat. I think Rage Fist might go a little bit too hard, but Annihilape as an evolved form of Primeape is very cool. Another regional variant form that I've always wanted is an electric type version of Primeape that would like evolve into something else, kind of like how Obstagoon did. But Annihilape, I think, is a very good, just normal evolution of Primeape and fills in the spots that Primeape misses in the current competitive meta, because Primeape hasn't been good for a very long time, let's be honest here. But what Annihilape does is it gets that ghost fighting typing that feels on brand for Primeape. I'm very glad to see that Annihilape is as strong as it is. Before this fighting type spot, I think I'm gonna put Annihilape in this spot for now. Poison goes to Revivifirm. I like him. He's cool, a funny engine guy. I used him for a good amount of the playthrough until I swapped him out for another Pokemon. And yeah, having that filter ability while being the first steel poison type, he's shift gears. He does his job very well, and eventually he might get trashed on, kind of like Trubbish. But like for a car engine Pokemon, he's good. I like him. Ground. What do I give to ground? I think it's gonna be either Tinglu or Great Tusk, and I'm leaning more towards Great Tusk right now because I like Tinglu. Even though he's kind of got a Fisher thing going on, I like Tinglu as a Pokemon. Because like singles, he sets rocks, he uses Whirlwind, he uses Ruination, he's pretty hard to get rid of. But in doubles, he can like just Choice Band Earthquake, you can Assault Vest. There's so many things that you could do with Tinglu that I really like. But it's kind of that prehistory that Great Tusk has with Donphan that really wins at the ground type slot for me. Okay, next up is flying. There's not really a lot of flying stuff here. But if I had to give a Pokemon the flying type slot, it would be Kilowattrel. Kilowattrel is like the closest thing to a regional bird, I think, except for whatever these things are called. I can't remember, but Kilowattrel is just a neat flying type. It has neat abilities and wind power and competitive and fast electric types, as I said before, are always going to be something that I like. And one of them being a flying type, it's just neat. I like Kilowattrel. Good Pokemon. Psychic. So I would put Veluza in Psychic. I really would. Because I like Veluza sort of. I like the idea of Veluza, which is sharpness, and Pokemon goes fast and uses Psycho Cut and uses Aqua Cutter and destroys a lot of its enemies. However, Veluza has not been very good, and I've not had much chance to play with it anyways. And they're also very annoying in Lake of Rage. And I kind of wish that it had a pre-evolution to flesh it out a little bit more. And its signature move is kind of underwhelming. I forget exactly what it does, but you like cut down your health a bit in order to get the positive parts of Shell Smash, which it's not very tanky, so it's not very worth doing that. But for Psychic types, I'm gonna put Armors in the spot, because Armors and Cerulettes, they stand out on their own, as I said before. And I can maybe put Iron Leaves in the spot if it was a little bit more paradoxically different than just Virizion, because I like what Iron Bundle does, where it kind of changes the point of a Delibird to make it more mechanical. But Virizion's thing that makes it more mechanical is just that it's like a glider or something like that, which it's okay. Like, I don't dislike it, but I feel like they could have done more with Paradox Virizion. Bugs just goes to Spidops. Spidops might have the lowest base stat total of a fully evolved Pokemon in Gen 9, but I think its signature move and just the ability to set webs and counter things in general is super funny. Like, I obviously used Terry during the playthrough, and Terry was super funny, but Yeah, Spidops just needs more things, but is a good Pokemon in like its current state. Like good design. I just like it. Oh, rocks. See, I liked Garganacl before it tanked me out in every game, and then the person using it got angry with me because they get crit on like turn 30. But Garganacl's Salt Cure is just a neat mechanic. I like it a lot. But Gamora is also right there, and Gamora, in terms of being a poison type, adds a lot. Also, its ability is quite good, where it just throws down toxic debris. So if I had to pick a rock type between Garganacl and Glimora, I think I'm gonna pick Glimora. Okay, ghost types. See, I like Fluttermane. Fluttermane is a very offensively powerful Pokemon, probably my favorite Paradox form. It does a lot for Mischievous in that line and making you remember that Pokemon exists. But also, I'm kind of prone to pricking another pre-evolution here. And I'm talking about Greavard. Greavard, as a little puppy, I don't necessarily like what it evolves into, because it looks a little strange. But I can see why they did that, because it's the ghost type and it's supposed to look a little bit strange. But Greavard, as a little doggo, he's very cute. He kind of reminds me of Skiddo in that way. And the fact that Go-Goat is like the matured version of Skiddo, Houndstone is like the matured version of Greavard. But Greavard, he's just such a cute little guy. Like, look at him. He's so neat. He's just a little doggo. The candle on his head grows whenever he saps the energy from you whenever you're playing with him. Just a good ghost-type concept overall. Is it Dragons? Dragons is a little difficult. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and jump to best legendary this generation. I think that's Koraidon. Koraidon, as I said before, just good box legendary Pokemon. It's going to be good competitively wherever it goes. It's just neat design. I like it a lot. So if we go back to Dragon, I feel like that allows me to put Roaring Moon in this spot. Roaring Moon is kind of like the pseudo-legendary Pokemon of Paradoxes, in the sense that it has a higher Paradox base stat total than the other ones except for Iron Valiant, which is its counterpart. But what Roaring Moon does, what Salamence doesn't, is that Roaring Moon feels like it's a bit more flexible than Salamence, because with Salamence you were just intimidating and then like hopefully getting attacks off, where with Roaring Moon fits my playstyle a little bit better, where you could boost your energy and then you could acrobatics, you could throat chop, you could dragon claw, you could Terra Steel. Like there's so many things that you could do with Roaring Moon that really does fit my playstyle really well, and I like Roaring Moon teams a lot. Even though Roaring Moon's usage has gone down a good bit in Reg C due to the paradoxes, or due to the ruins being a thing and dark type counters increasing a little bit more, I really like what Roaring Moon's design as like a past form of Salamence and what it does for the competitive meta. Okay, moving into dark types. I feel like, actually, let me go to Steel for a sec. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna make, actually, this is a hard one. So I need to juggle King Gambit in here somewhere, because I quite like King Gambit. Like, he's a good evolution of Bisharp. He fits, he makes sense. He makes me wonder why I thought Bisharp was a fully evolved Pokemon beforehand. But also Goldengo has to go in here somewhere, and I've already denied Goldengo the ghost type spot for the little puppet doggy. And I really want to put Meowscarada in here somewhere, but I think Meowscarada is getting pushed out by King Gambit for the dark type spot, and it's already been pushed out by Scoville for the grass type spot. And then in the steel type spot, I'm going to put Goldengo, because I think Goldengo as a concept, you get the 99 coins and then you evolve the chest Pokemon into the cash money Pokemon, and he's got Make It Rain. I think he's a fun guy. He's a fun concept. I like him a lot. Also, he's the 1000th Pokemon, and the fact that they came up with that you collect 999 things in order to get the last one, it's just a neat idea. I think they did a very good job with Goldengo. And last but not least is Fairy, which I feel like I could give to Bread Doggo, but it's probably going to go to Fluttermane, because I like Bread Doggo and what it does, and I think its ability is very cool, but that's kind of where it ends. Whereas with Fluttermane has so much offensive potential and fits my playstyle so well that I put it on basically every team, and obviously so does everybody else, since it has like it's like a 76 or 67% usage on Pokemon Snowdown. Fluttermane's just so good, and maybe a little bit too good, but it just has so much variability to run It's just a fun Pokemon to have. I like it a lot. Last but not least, my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon is a hard one. Because I like the fact that we got a regional variant of Tauros this gen. But, you could put that in any gen and I would have liked it. But specifically for Pokemon that came out this generation, I think it would have to go to Scovel. Because Scovel, as the fire grass type, it's just a neat concept. Like, he doesn't look like he's a finished Pokemon, but I think that just means that he has potential for the future. I'm excited to see what they do with that eventually. Because, yeah, I think what Scovel does as, like, a chlorophyll, grass, fire type, I think that's just really unique. And I quite like the design, so he gets the favorite out of Gen 9. Okay, now for the hard part. Picking my favorite type Pokemon of each generation is not something I'm mentally prepared to do, so let's go back to some of the stuff on the bottom. Favorite regional mammal? Just give the spot to Bidoof. It's just funny. I have a Bidoof plush. Bidoof's just a funny guy. He gets the job done with all the TMs and HMs and stuff. Favorite regional bug? See, I know Joltik isn't on this list, which makes sense. I mean, he's really not a regional bug. But I think my favorite regional bug would just be Sawaddle. Whenever we're going through Gen 5, I don't think I talked a lot about Levani, but I like Sawaddle a lot. He's a cool little leaf caterpillar Pokemon, and I could totally see them at some point giving a different evolution to Swadloon. But yeah, he's a good little bug caterpillar. Eats the leaf. Very nice. Favorite pseudo legendary. This is, in my head, it is either between Tyranitar or Garchomp or Hydreigon. Because I like them all pretty equally, and Hydreigon's usage has only gone up more because of terrestrialization, whereas Garchomp has been more reliable every generation, kind of like Tyranitar. But if I had to grab a pseudo from this list to start building a team with, I do think it would be Garchomp. Also, I didn't mention this before, but Garchomp is like my Pokemon Unite main for like the longest time, and eventually that did become Mamoswine, but Garchomp, he's fun. Favorite Pikachu clone? See, I feel like there's a debate for it to be Mimikyu or Alolan Raichu, but I've already picked them. I think my favorite Pikachu clone to use out of any of these ones is Pawmot, because Pawmot is the one that fully evolves. And I don't know why they stopped doing that, but like some Pachirisu, Emolga, Dedenne, Togedemaru, they could use some evolutions, like at least one each. But the fact that they didn't stop at Palmy and into Palma, and they made Pawmot actually its own useful Pokemon instead of just out in Pikachu clone land where things are unviable, I like that that's a trend that we're starting to do. Favorite evolution? Probably Jolteon. I like, just fast electric types are always cool. Nothing against like Sylveon and I guess just Sylveon. Sylveon's the other one that I like a good bit, but Jolteon is just, he just fills the roles that I like a little bit more than Sylveon does, even though Sylveon's probably a little bit better competitively. Favorite fossil? I think my favorite fossil is Dracovish. I don't think I gave Dracovish a spot before for anything, but I quite like the mix and match fossils that we have going on here in Gen 8. I think that they're a neat idea, and I hope that we get some more of them in the future. What is this? Favorite regional form? Okay, let me think about this for a second. If I was to pick a favorite regional form, I don't think it would be something from Alola, even though Alolan Raichu or Alolan Ninetales are the frontrunners. I'm trying to just compare things to regional Tauros. Regional Tauros beats everything in Alola. I think it beats everything in that Gen 8 has to offer, except for maybe one of the birds. The birds are nice, but I don't think they beat Tauros quite yet. Maybe just a level underneath the Tauros. Hisuian forms. Are you really gonna make me pick between Hisuian, Zoroark, Ursaluna, and Fire Tauros? Is that what I have to do right now? I think that's what I have to do right now. Or, no, Ursaluna isn't in this list, is it? Okay, so I only have to pick between Tauros and Zoroark. Honestly, I know Zoroark is a Gen 5 Pokemon, but I think it's gotta be Fire Tauros. Fire Tauros is just so cool. He's just angry bull who goes around raging bowling things, breaking everybody's shields. Good times, good times. Favorite Gigantamax? Oh, I've already said this one, but that's G-Max Colossal. Give me a second just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna stick with that. Like Charizard's also cool, and Blastoise getting all of the guns is very funny, but I do think it's gonna be Colossal. Favorite baby Pokemon? This might seem a little bit strange, but I'm gonna give this spot to Munchlax. Munchlax is just mini Snorlax, is very cool, and I think Riolu is a close second in this category for baby Pokemon, but Munchlax is just funny. Favorite box legendary? See, I know Zekrom is the box legendary of the game where I started, but I don't think he's necessarily my favorite box legendary. I mean, the contenders are, it looks like Lugia, Groudon, Dialga, Yveltal, Solgaleo, Zacian, and Koraidon. And that's a hard list to pick from. You know what, this might be a bit brash, but because Gen 9 is the newest gen, I feel the closest to Koraidon. So I'm going to slot Koraidon in here. Also, Koraidon is a dragon type, so it'll work in the Electrify strategy and fit quite well there, so he's got that going for him. I think Koraidon's probably the most, I mean, if you're not including Zacian whenever it's not in its nerf, because they nerfed Zacian's ability, which is good, but Koraidon is going to be very powerful. Favorite mythical Pokemon? This isn't something that I've really had to think about. I would say that my favorite mythical Pokemon is Hoopa Unbound. Hoopa Unbound is just such a strong one, and it really sets itself apart from the other mythical Pokemon with its form changes and its lore, that it's just a neat idea. Favorite Ultra Beast? I'd say that spot probably goes to Naganadel or Blacephalon, and depending on the day, either or would work. But I feel like Naganadel is more consistent at being my favorite Ultra Beast. Favorite Paradox form? I think Great Tusk and Fluttermane both do the past Paradox form really well, but I also think that Iron Moth wasn't one that I really talked about during Poison or Fire types for Gen 9, but I think Iron Moth's design is really good for the future form. Also, Iron Valiant is very nice, it's just not very good competitively. And Iron Bundle. Can't forget about Iron Bundle, even though he is kind of speed control in the sense of the word speed control. But the Pokemon that I think does the form change the best is probably Great Tusk. Just that much change on Donphan to make it what Donphan could be a little bit more with the stats and the fighting typing. I think it makes it my favorite Paradox. Favorite type? My favorite type is Fire. Electric is obviously a close second, and Dragon is like my third favorite type, but Fire is my favorite type. I would totally be a Fire type gym leader if given the opportunity. Electric, close second. My favorite Pokeball? I'd say the Pokeball that I use the most, but that would be like the Ultra Ball, and I don't use that ball the most. You know what, I think Premier Ball just does the Pokeball like a different color, but it's simple enough that it's not too complicated. And Premier Balls just always felt like this, like the fancy form of a normal Pokeball, and I like that idea, so I'll make it Premier Ball. Favorite Spinda is, oh wow, it's actually that one. Isn't that crazy? Favorite Alchemy is either the Rainbow or the Shamrock Shake one. Shamrock Shake is just so funny. You got the Clover, it's green, Shamrock Shake. And my favorite added evolution. Oh, there's a lot of them here. So the Pokemon I feel like gets the most out of having another evolution, and I feel like completes it the most, and I might have to go back on this eventually, is Ursaluna. Ursaluna to Ursaring is just such... Oh, but Kingambit is here. Actually, no. Kingambit feels like anybody could design a Kingambit. But when looking at Ursaring to Ursaluna, I doubt a lot of people would put Ursaring back on all fours. Like, I think that's a generally good move to do, even though Teddiursa and Ursaring are on two legs. Putting Ursaluna back on all fours and making it just a powerful bear Pokemon, again, it's just neat. I think Cursula is also worth an honorable mention. What Cursula does for Corsola is very cool. In the sense that it makes Corsola rememberable again. Okay, now I have to do something that is actually very difficult. Now I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I actually have the strength to do it, which is picking my favorite type Pokemon out of the entire deck. I mean, it does make it easier because it slims down the numbers by a lot. But this is not easy by any sense of the word easy. So for normal type, I feel like my favorite normal type is Hisuian Zoroark. Just because it's the regional variant of Zoroark, which I already really liked in design. I think the normal ghost typing design, where it's got the white and the red, it's just so nice. The shiny is so nice. The fact that it's the first normal ghost type and it's only weak to dark, and it's immune to 3 things. It's just so good. I think it's such an improvement on Zoroark, and I like it a lot. My favorite fire. Well, my favorite fire type would be Emboar, but if Emboar is not in the list, because Emboar, I feel like I'm kind of biased against again because it was my first Pokemon, but if Emboar isn't in the list of my favorite fire type Pokemon, I'd pick Volcarona every day of the week. Volcarona, such a good fire bug type design. I've already said a lot about Volcarona, but just good Gen 5 Pokemon overall. Favorite water type. Out of the Pokemon that are here, I would say favorite water type is Water Urshifu. Again, just how it competes with everything else. I think it's just such a neat Pokemon and how it changes the meta and how you have to play around it. Grass type Pokemon probably goes to Scovillain. Scovillain, again, just does the fire and grass type really good. It's just a neat Chlorophyllmon, neat moves. I've already said all this stuff. You know why it's here. Favorite electric type is Galvantula, but Galvantula is not in this slot because it would be too OP. But if Galvantula isn't in the electric type slot, I'm probably gonna pick Boltund, just because Electrify is so much fun with Boltund. And Electric Doggo, he's funny. He's funny. Favorite ice type out of the ones that I have here, I think it's gonna be Lapras. Lapras is just an OG homie. Like it's just a tanky water ice type Pokemon, but it really does the single stage form really well. And I think it's a good design. One of my favorite designs to come out of Gen 1. It's the ice type spot pretty good there. Gen Pao is a close second, but I'll give it to Lapras. Fighting type, I think Annihilate wins fighting type. Annihilate's just such a cool evolution of Primeape that I think it wins that spot pretty good. Favorite poison type? It feels a little bit too easy to put Slowbro in favorite poison type. And I think I'm actually going to give this spot to Naganadel. Naganadel is such a solid poison type overall. Favorite ground type? This is kind of difficult. Because, see, we've got Ursaluna here, and I've already talked about how much I like Ursaluna, but Gliscor is right there. I'd feel bad if I didn't give it to Gliscor, because I gave Gliscor the favorite of Gen 4. Okay, so if I was to grab either a Gliscor or an Ursaluna for a team, I would grab Ursaluna. I think Ursaluna gets the favorite ground type spot, even though Gliscor is a very close second again. Favorite flying type? This is making me choose between Talonflame and Thundurus, and I don't want to have to do that. I'd say favorite flying type is Thundurus, just because it has such a cool legendary status. And while Talonflame is my favorite final regional bird, Thundurus as an electric flying type legendary, with everything that it can do, and the fact that I have a Thundurus plushie, definitely kind of settles it for me. Favorite psychic type? Oh, it's Slowbro. Slowbro and Lunala is a close second, honestly, just because of how powerful Lunala feels as a legendary Pokemon. Also, Solgaleo could go in the top 3 psychic types, but Slowbro as like a normie psychic type is definitely my favorite normie psychic type. Favorite bugs? That's Galvantula. Galvantula is my favorite bug. Cleaver, I mean, saying that Cleaver is a close second just isn't true, but like, if Galvantula wasn't in the list, Cleaver would probably be pretty high up there, as Scizor as well. Scizor, Cleaver, Yanmega. I mean, all of these bugs are pretty good. Those guys specifically are also pretty good. Favorite rock is making me choose between Tyranitar and Lycanroc. I can see myself gravitating more towards Tyranitar as a rock type than I see myself gravitating towards Lycanroc as a rock type, so I'm kind of sorry that he has to get left in the dust like that, but Tyranitar, he's good. He's a solid rock. Ghost is hard, because we have Basculegion and Greavard and Chandelure all in the same category. But if I had to pick one, it's gonna be the only pre-evolution to make it through. But I think Griever's gonna fill the spot. He's just a cute little guy. I like him a lot. Favorite dragon? I think it's Garchomp. I mean, he's already beaten out Hydreigon for favorite pseudo, but Garchomp as pseudo dragon just feels like the best embodiment of a dragon. Even though he can't fly or anything like Rayquaza or Dragonite, Garchomp just feels like a brutal dragon type, and I love that about him. Favorite dark type? Before my favorite dark type, it probably would have been... Actually, no, Galarian Moltres fits up there pretty good with Zoroark. But Kingambit is such a good Pokemon. Kingambit being the evolved form of Bisharp, being so tanky, got that Sucker Punch, got Supreme Overlord, got Defiant. There's just so many things to like about Kingambit that I think Kingambit gets the dark type spot pretty safely here. Steel types is hard because I want to pick Excadrill and Aegislash and Golden Go for this slot, but I think I have to pick Excadrill for this slot. Excadrill, while not being in Gen 9, is one of my favorite Pokemon, coming straight out of Gen 5. Aegislash and Golden Go are close seconds. They both even tie for second place, I would say, but Excadrill is just on a different level of Pokemon design. Going into fairy types, it's either between Mimikyu or Fluttermane, and I feel like I'm more biased towards Fluttermane because of how good it is competitively, so I am going to give the spot to Mimikyu. Oh, and last but not least, favorite starter. He's my first Pokemon. The bias is just too strong for this one. I can't overlook it. I do like Emboar a lot. If I was to remove Emboar from the list, though, I don't know if I could rank these guys individually, but like all of them are just so good. Favorite gimmick? Well, I mean, Tauros isn't so much a gimmick, but if I had to pick my favorite gimmick out of what is presented in front of me, it's probably Primal Kyogre. Primal Kyogre or Primal Groudon, either or can fill the spot, really. Okay, favorite legendary was already kind of filled out with favorite box legendary, but I think my favorite legendary out of the ones presented to me here, I mean, we'll give Koraidon favorite legendary for now, but I think this is hard. This is a hard one. It's gonna be Groudon or Landorus or Koraidon or Dialga filling up the slot. I could see any of those four filling up the slot on any given day, but I think the one that I have the most personal connection with is Lando T. Lando T is just a solid legendary Pokemon. He's like just the ultimate one between the trio, and then, you know, you add Enamorus, and I don't know quite how Enamorus fits in there, whether or not Enamorus respects Landorus or not. But Lando T changing forms between, you know, Cloud, Tiger, probably Tiger, maybe Lion, whatever the four-legged creature that this thing is supposed to represent, the genie form. I just really like the legendary form a lot. Very, very cool. And my penultimate Pokemon that I've said many times now is Galvantula. Galvantula is the favorite of the favorites. Such a cool design. First Pokemon that I ever caught two of was Joltik, just because I liked Joltik that much during my normal Pokemon White playthrough. Just good Pokemon all around, but everybody on this list obviously deserves to be here in some fashion. I mean, I feel like it's not easy for me to make a team using just my favorite Pokemon here, because I'd have to think about how they each support each other. Like, I like Galvantula and Emboar both pretty equally, but I don't think I necessarily put them on teams with each other, unless I can, like, make some weird things for them to like synergize with each other, because they really don't synergize with each other. And like, are we talking about doubles or singles? Like I really don't think that there's much of a team for me to make here. Like, I can maybe pick like a box of 30 Pokemon that are all my favorite. That would be like my first box, but that's a little difficult. Oh, also I want to make I like them shiny. So yeah, that's my list. That is all of my favorite Pokemon. I feel like I at least touched on every Pokemon that I like, at least in some retrospect during this time. I don't know how long this video is going to be. It might genuinely be like 2 hours long, and I am so afraid of the editing that I am about to have to do. but I mean, it's everything. Feels good getting it all out on the table. And I'm probably gonna have to revisit it in a couple months whenever more Gen 9 Pokemon come out to see if that changes anything in Gen 9. Hopefully not. I mean, actually, hopefully. I mean, like when more good Pokemon come out, but changing this might be a bit of a pain. So yeah, I'm just gonna move around while I do the outro bit, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video and even consider subscribing, because both of those things help me out an absolute ton. Hopefully this is going up before Tears of the Kingdom playthrough starts, but if it doesn't, go check that out. I mean, I'm playing it all the time. I'm gonna figure out some things day one. I'm very excited for that playthrough, and as well as we always have a bunch of other Pokemon stuff and Pokemon playthroughs going on, and we got some fan games around the corner. I'm gonna have some heavy edited videos, kind of like this one. I mean, kind of not. I mean, they're gonna be scripted, obviously, but more videos around the corner in the future. So, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much.